Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the PRC's Shotgun House Month. This is our final installment, and I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with a woman who needs absolutely no introduction, Julie Neill, credible lighting designer, that she has graciously opened her home for us today, virtually, of course. Before we get started, I need to do a little bit of housekeeping, but I wanted to just welcome everybody for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. So first, I have to do a huge shout out and thank you to the PRC's Shotgun House Month sponsors. We have been doing an entire month of programming, exploring all the wonderful things we love about this traditional, beloved house style in New Orleans, the shotgun home, and we could not do it without these sponsors. Our title sponsor, of course, is Entablature Design Build and Entablature Realty. We also have sponsors by Clandestine Event Rentals, Axelrod and Associates Home Inspectors, Colmex Construction, Green Coast Enterprises, Atomic Architecture, Claire Lewis Designs, Durable Slate Company, Preservation Title, Ellie Sanders and Isabel Sanders, iMoto, who created the 3D tour that we're going to see today, and I'll talk a little bit about in just a sec, and 89.9 WWNO Radio, which is one of our media sponsors, and we really appreciate their help. I also have to give a big thank you to the Hellas Foundation and the Klein Lehman Esperanza Fund. They support all of PRC's programs, not just Shotgun House Months, and we couldn't do the work we do without them. Very much appreciated. The Ella West Freeman Foundation also supports PRC's conservation and education programs, which is a huge part of our work. And the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation supports our Revival Grants program. And I want to say a little bit about our Revival Grants, because it's really the heart of what we do at PRC. If you're not familiar with that program, we provide free home repairs to low and moderate income homeowners in the Tremaine neighborhood to help them restore their houses, fix problems that will help their houses be maintained and in good shape for generations to come and protect their family asset. We're very proud of that work. We hope to be able to expand it beyond the Tremaine neighborhood, the historic Tremaine neighborhood at some point. And all of the donations that have come through during Shotgun House Month, including any donations you may give during this program, which we highly encourage, will support our Revival Grants this year. So we're just very excited to have that dedicated funding to be able to continue that work. It's really important. Speaking of donations, I do want to give a huge shout out to our members and donors. Our members are the lifeblood of our organization. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, the Preservation Resource Center, and our members are an integral part of what we do. You come, you give your feedback, you participate in our programs, and we love engaging with our members. We appreciate every single one of them. And tonight, if you are watching this program and have enjoyed all of our programs during Shotgun House Month, we ask, if it's possible, that you consider doing a $25 donation. That would have been the cost of an in-person tour ticket when we have done Shotgun House tour in person in the past, during non-pandemic times. And that $25 donation will get you our digital design guide. It's a new product that we put out this year as a companion to our tour that has all fun details about every single house that has been presented, the light fixtures, the furnishings, the artwork, the paint colors on the walls, the cabinetry, all those details. If you love design, you're going to love this product. And it also has all the 3D tours that we've presented during Shotgun House Month will be part of that. So you can go back, look at them, explore them at your own leisure, and really learn and enjoy all the design that we've presented this month. So that comes with a $25 donation. If you feel like making one today, we would greatly appreciate it. Finally, also during Shotgun House Month, we've been also presenting our Maintain Right series, which is a new series that PRC has been putting out. My colleague, Anna Pernis, is the Director of Conservation and Education. She's been presenting classes all through the month on good home maintenance tips and guidance, advice, and also troubleshooting, helping present information that will help you look at your house and say, oh, I see a problem. I'm not sure even who to call. This will help you figure that out. All those programs are free. You can see the whole schedule on our website, prcno.org. The last program in our Maintain Rate series is Tuesday night, and it's about plaster. And so if you have plaster in your home, or you're thinking about doing a renovation and it has plaster, or you're considering keeping or restoring plaster, you definitely want to tune into that program. It's a free program. It's going to be great. So finally, you can see us. We cannot see you. You're muted and your video is off, but we highly encourage you to participate. And how you do that is through the chat and Q&A function on the bottom of your screen. So as Julie and I go through her beautiful house and chat, if you've got questions, put them in the chat and Q&A, and she and I will answer them toward the end, or as if they make sense to answer during, we'll do that as well. So we'll be monitoring that. And finally, the ghost of the machine that you see moving her cursor around is my incredibly talented colleague, Danielle, who is the tech wizard who will be driving this presentation and the iMoto 3D tour, which I greatly appreciate. And so you will see sometimes she'll be putting things in the chat too. Like she put some information about our sponsors and things in the chat. So with no further ado, let me introduce Julie, who really needs no introduction at all. She's a native New Orleanian who has been the incredibly talented lighting designer in the city for 20 years. And her custom handcrafted designs for chandeliers, sconces, other light fixtures can be found in homes all over the world. And I'm so happy that she's still based in New Orleans and is doing all of her work still in New Orleans, right there on Magazine Street. So thank you, Julie, for opening the door to us today.
Well, thank you, Susan, for including me on the tour. It's very exciting.
Oh, well, your house is such a beautiful shotgun. And what I love most about it is the fact that it's still really a shotgun. And we'll talk about that you really have kept the layout and the design true to the original form, while also making it a, beautiful, restful, space that fits a modern family. So we usually like to start these tours on the outside, and your house is stunningly pretty on the outside. Those brackets are just, they're gorgeous.
Love those brackets.
Those brackets. So the house dates to about circa 1880. Is that correct?
That's what I've been told. Yes.
How did you find the house? You bought it in 2006?
Yes. Well, I was going down Camp Street one day and I saw a for sale sign. My house is one of 4 in a row that's all the same house. And the one on the corner was for sale. And I kind of didn't pay attention to it because it was painted a color that I don't like. And after a few times going down the street, I just started to realize that I loved the house. So we went through it. I was working with a real estate agent who I did not know very well. It was right after Katrina and everything was crazy. And we went through the house on the corner and I made an offer that was accepted. And somehow paperwork, I don't know what happened, but I didn't get the house. And so I called the listing agent, who was Fred Burris, who lived in one of the 4 houses actually. And I said, what happened? And he said, it was a bad scene and you lost the house. And I said, well, can you find me another house just like that house? Because that's the house I want. And he said, I can find you a house. So we looked at a bunch of houses and every house that we looked at, I didn't like. And finally he said, I've shown you a lot of really nice houses. What is wrong with you? And I said, I still want the house on the corner. And he said, well, you're not going to get that house, but let me make a phone call. And he called the people who owned this house and asked if they wanted to sell it. And they did. And and this house turned out to be better for me than the house on the corner. So it was kismet. I think.
That's such a New Orleans story, right?
It's New
It's
Orleans.
all like knocking on somebody's door and being like, "You ready?" And the timing might be right.
Yes.
It might have been perfectly great timing for them, and just somebody just needed to come along and ask, and you were the one.
Yes.
So, have you done any work other than it looks like you painted? This has. Did you do any other exterior work to the home?
Um, no, although right now I think you can see from the contractor's sign on my porch where I've added a back porch that's not quite finished. And as soon as that happens, then we'll do some work on the front porch, which is concrete and kind of not good. So we're going to rework the front porch as soon as we finish the back porch.
What condition was the house in when you bought it?
It was in wonderful condition. It was and that's why I feel very lucky, because really, there were things that needed to be updated, but structurally it was in wonderful condition. And out of the 4 houses that are in the row that this house is in, mine was the only one that still had the 4 plaster medallions in the 4 front rooms.
Oh, wow.
So bathrooms needed, I updated 2 bathrooms before I moved in. And it was a double when I bought it. So one side was rented, and it was rented to a girl who was in med school and graduating that spring. We had bought it in the fall. So I didn't ask her to leave because I just couldn't do that. So as soon as she moved out, we already had some doors that were sheetrocked over because the house had been a double, a single, a double, it had gone back and forth. So we knocked down the sheetrock that was covering the doors, and all of a sudden it was a single house again. But the kitchen on the side that was rented was horrible. And the kitchen on the side that I lived in was, you'll see when we go through, a teeny tiny kitchen. So I wound up renovating the kitchen when we got it into a single house. Mm-hmm. And now, after I've been here for, I think, 13 years, my master bathroom just got too bad off and old. And it was in a part of the house that was a lean-to on the back of the house, which wasn't in good condition. So I knocked it down and we've started over.
Well, let's step inside. Danielle will bring us inside the door. So it is a camelback, correct?
Yes.
Was it originally a camelback, do you know, or did they add the camelback at some point?
I have to think it was original because all the houses in this row have the same camelback.
So what's really fun and almost unusual about your home is that you didn't open all the spaces up, even though you turned it into a single. It's really not, it still feels somewhat like a double.
Yes.
Tell me a little about your thought processes there.
Well, first of all, I like rooms. Mm-hmm. And I think that every room has an opportunity to have its own personality. And if you make one big room, you've only got one personality and no place to escape to. And I like little places to escape to. Also, I just think that the layout is not a modern layout, but it's a very wonderful way to live. And if you can, I sort of took the form of the side that you're looking at now is the side we enter on. And that's kind of the way, more of a public space. And then if you go over to the other side, it's more of a private space, but they're all open, and it's open rooms, and you can move through. It's not, the walls aren't knocked down, but there's a lot of flow moving around the house.
It's funny because I feel like, and stories have been written about this a lot over the last year, is that the open concept that was such an in vogue thought prior to the pandemic, people are now saying, those rooms are a good idea. We kind of like walls and we kind of like doors. because it is nice to be able to say, you know, the dining room has its own personality, the living room has its own personality.
Yeah.
And they don't all have to be one big open space.
No. And
But this
also, if you have
feels
less walls,
open.
you have less place to hang art, you know.
And it's, you know, these spaces, these ceilings are what, about 12 feet?
Yes, 12 feet.
So it doesn't feel small. Like, you know, you're not feeling enclosed, even though the rooms are linear, they don't feel small.
No, the only time the dining room feels a little small is when we have a dinner party, because I have a lot of leaves and the table can get long, but once people are sitting in those chairs, the room is a little narrow to get past. If everyone's sitting at the table and someone wants to go back to the kitchen, it's a little bit of a trip around.
But that just makes it cozy, right?
I love it. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I love it.
Danielle, can I stop you right there? Because I really want to look at that medallion. That medallion is stunning. So these medallions, there's one here and then there's one in the front room that we just went through,
Yeah.
where they look to be original to the house. Did you have to
Yes.
do any restoration or anything to them?
No, and they're not perfect. I think the one that you're looking at right now is missing a little piece on one side, but I think that's part of the history of the house. I just like that they're there. And no, actually, I think the center of that one is even tilting a little bit, but I think they're just so beautiful. And there are four of them. They're all the same design. And there's one in the front room and this room. And then on the other side of the house, we have the same two medallions. And
the molding on the crown molding, was that original?
yes, and it's plaster. It's
Plaster?
not wood. And on a couple of the houses in this row that decided to knock down the center wall, then they've lost everything, because there's no way to join the plaster. When that piece of wall comes down, there's nothing. And so that's another good reason, in my opinion, to leave every room as a room.
Were these pocket doors or were these always just cased opening there?
I think there was a pocket. I think there were pocket doors. On this side, there's no track, but on the other side of the house, there's still the little metal track that the pocket doors
Went through.
Yes.
But they weren't there when you bought the house. No. So as we spin around, maybe we'll see so you see the crown in here too. So the other side, do you still have the front door on the other side?
I do. And people ask me about that all the time. You know, why didn't you take the door out? And well, it's true to the house to keep the door. And it gives you another way to get outside, you know.
It's practical. I mean, I think the facades, you know, people can take them out and make them look okay because they can put like a full length window. But it was a double. Why try to hide it? You know, I mean, it's the charm of the house, I think.
It's true. And honestly, I like that when I'm in the other side and I want to go out on the porch, I don't have to come all the way around to the other front door. I can just walk straight out. So I like that.
Tell us about this light fixture.
Well, you know that I design light fixtures and make light fixtures, but for my own home, I collect old pieces, parts of things, and I had this beautiful old banding. And so I made a new chandelier and used the old banding as the decorative parts for that, and also for the one in the dining room. I saved the parts forever until I was ready to make them into chandeliers.
It's just
so they are my style, but I sort of like that they're one of a kind pieces. You know, you can't get another one of either one of those.
So you typically design your home with white. I mean, almost every space is white, but then punctuated with artwork and like gold fixtures. you want to talk a little bit about what your idea for that is? You were, I should say, to people who don't know, you were an interior designer before you became a lighting designer, correct?
Yes. White, to me, white's a very restful color.
Mhm.
And it's just a good backdrop for anything else you want to do, and also for any change you want to make. If you look at any of the rooms that I have, and you took out just the accessories and brought in accessories of another color, you have a whole different feel to the room. I
Mhm.
like to move things around, and so a white background gives you a lot of possibilities. But also, white feels clean and fresh, and it magnifies the light,
Mhm.
the natural light. So it just feels good to me.
Mhm.
There's no real intellectual reason. I just like it.
Mhm. Well, it feels very dreamy, almost sort of soothing to me.
Yeah.
When you walk in your space, it's almost like you could exhale. It's like, oh.
Yes.
Tell me about this console table on the left. It almost looks, is it painted?
Okay, there's a pair of those, and they're Italian,
They're
and
beautiful.
they come from Carla Katz Antiques on Magazine Street,
Terrific.
and they're really cool. They're painted, they're very old, and if you look at the top, they have like a faux marble painted top, and I just, I think they're fun.
They're really fun. Do you have any idea what the age is on them?
I think they might be 18th century.
18th century. Wow.
I think they're really very old.
I mean, they're
I can't
spectacular.
remember what Carla said because I've had them a really long time, but
They're
they're pretty old. If you look underneath them, you can tell the wood is really thick and really old.
really, really cool.
I love them.
So look from this angle, the floors, did you pickle them or whitewash them? What did you do with the floors? These are the original floors?
I pickled them, just sanded. They were, that red, old New Orleans reddish brown,
Mhm.
which is fine. I really actually love that kind of floor because it feels so real New Orleans, but
Mhm.
it wasn't what this house wanted. You see there, if you look, you can see where the tracks
Yeah, you can.
for the for the pocket doors used to be.
Mhm.
Um, and I do love that old New Orleans look, but my house was crying out for light floors. So that's what I did.
It tells you what it wants to be.
Yes.
Before we leave this room, Danielle, let's look up at that light fixture in the dining room because this is one of your designs.
Yeah, that's another one that's made out of using old decorative parts that we made a new frame to hold.
It's wonderful. Okay, where are we? Oh, we're turning around in the dining room. Oh, this is a great view of the space from this angle, where you can really see the whole length of the space. What a beautiful, just panorama there, like, from the dining room back. Tell me about the painting on the wall on the left above the
By
bed.
her name is Kent Walsh, and she's in Fairhope, Alabama.
Mhm.
And one time when I went to Fairhope, I saw some of her work and contacted her. And I used to have her work in my shop when we still had the shop open.
Mhm.
And I just, that piece had a lot of movement, and it was just enough color and the right kind of color that felt right to me.
Mhm.
And it just had some movement and gestures that spoke to me. And I've had that painting for a really long time, and I still love it.
And it, adds a nice pop of color, but it also adds a contemporary edge to the room.
That's what I love. I love old interiors. I mainly gravitate to antique furniture, but I like modern art. If you look around my house, you'll see I have a lot of modern art. And it's funny that we would look at that piece because that's not from a New Orleans artist, but many of the artworks that I have in my house are from New Orleanian artists.
Oh, what is this piece that we're looking at here above to the
Well,
back?
that's by a very interesting artist, and it's me.
That is a very interesting artist, very talented.
Um,
You made that.
yeah.
Is it plaster? What is it?
No, it's paper. It's paper. It's folded paper on canvas. Painted. It's a painted canvas, and then there's paint. I paint the paper, and then I cut it and fold it.
Like origami?
Probably not as complex as origami. It might be just like one or two folds. And then it's sort of laid out in a grid. And I know it's kind of, I ask myself, why did I start making art like that? And I feel like something really soothing about the order and the regularity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know an artist named Agnes Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And she did just grids and stripes. And I wasn't thinking of her when I started doing these, but after people asked me why I was doing them, I just started to think about Agnes Martin and just how soothing. I like it that it's modern,
Mm-hmm.
but that it's a soothing little layout. It's regular and repetitive, and
Mm-hmm.
it sort of has a calming effect.
They almost look like pearls in the light, the way the light is hitting them, at least in this picture.
I paint the paper with an iridescent paint.
Okay, so it has almost like a pearlized look to it.
Yes. Because it's all about, I'm a light person. So, and I love having it by the window because the paper glows, and then it casts different shadows as the sun goes around the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a fun piece.
It's beautiful. Did you study art before because you weren't doing lighting design originally, you were doing interior design.
I was a fine arts major in college. So I just started making furniture because I thought I needed something practical to paint on at some point.
These mirrors in this room are really cool. They almost look like through the looking glass because of the way they're shaped. Tell me.
They're so wild and so weird. I got those from Tara Shaw, and I don't know anything about them. I just loved them.
It's
and
really cool. They're like Alice in Wonderland a little.
Yes, and if you can see, they stand, the top of them curve off of the wall. They're just kind of crazy things. And I have my two pieces of artwork, original art in that room, and I don't want to fill up my rooms with too much stuff on the walls, but they have a lot going on, but they're only one thing each. And I love that there are a pair of them to flank the opening. When I saw them, I just knew they had to come home with me.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. Are the walls plaster or are they drywall?
They're drywall.
Yeah, so that's makes it easy for repairs and things.
Yeah.
All right, so we should go into this room next, do you think, or should we keep going the other way? Let's go.
I think we can go into this room.
Yeah.
So if you can see the door we just went through, that was, when the house was a double, that was just a wall. And when it had been turned into a single, that was the opening. Those were see that door right there, and the other door on the other side of the fireplace. That was just a wall when it was a double. But when I bought the house, there was sheetrock on my side, on the side we were just in, there was just sheetrock. There was a door frame and it had sheetrock in it. And on the other side, the doors were there and you could open them, but you just saw sheetrock. So when we took it over, we had a party, like knock down that wall. Our neighbors came over the day that our tenant moved out. The neighbors came over and we just busted open the sheetrock and turned it into a overnight. And so
the transoms there?
Yes, the transoms, but the whole thing was sheetrocked over.
So the glass and everything was just behind the sheetrock?
Yes.
That's wild.
So it was really cool though, because it didn't take a renovation for me to turn my house into a single. I just had to knock down the sheetrock that had been put over the doors.
It's wild. The doors themselves were in good shape?
The doors were in fabulous shape. All the doors in this house are pairs. There aren't any, well, there's only one single door in the whole house and it goes into the powder room. But I think that, I don't know why they did it, except for, this is a small house and the rooms are small. And I don't think there's any room anywhere in the house for one big door to open. So it's real, I think when you were talking about that it flows like a modern house. One of the reasons why is because there are no gigantic doors. It's all pairs and they mostly always stay open.
Right. So it just feels like it flows. Even
Yes.
though the rooms are more linear, it's just they just flow,
Yes.
in and out of each other.
So what you have over on this side is an exact reflection of what's over on the other side, a front room and a second room that would have been, I guess, a living room and dining room on this side too, but I made it into what's known as my sanctuary. So right there, you're looking at my sofa that I sit on to think. That's the thinking sofa.
That's where you are right now.
That's where I am. Look, here I am on the
life imitating art. So this is where you sketch and design, because you design each of your lighting designs. You start with sketching.
Yes, and I this is my thinking sofa, and for here, I have a drawing table in this room, but I took it down for the tour because it's just sort of extra. I'm waiting until the renovation's over, and then my drawing table will have a home in the back. But this is I just call this area, this room and the room in the front of this room are my sanctuary. And so I sit on I have a dog that just is the biggest lap dog in the whole world. Danielle was laughing at him because he couldn't handle me talking without him being on my lap when they were here. So he likes to sit on my lap. So this is the sofa where the dog sits on my lap and I think about design. And then I go and I draw at the drawing table.
What a beautiful place to do that. If anyone has the current issue of Preservation in Print magazine, you will see Julie's adorable dogs in it because they were in some of the.
See, I think he got in this video, this tour. I think he's somewhere on.
Oh, I think he is in the tour too. We might see him in this 3D tour in a minute. Before we leave this space, right before we started this presentation tonight, Julie was telling us the story about these wonderful chairs, and I just have to get you to repeat that story because it's so fun.
Well, it's going to make me sound like a crazy person.
We're not.
So I just like to look at pretty things. My eye wants to see something pretty. And I was driving down Louisiana Avenue and I got to a red light and I was kind of bored at the red light. And I said, I want to see something pretty. So I opened up Instagram. The light was red. I wasn't driving. And I opened up Instagram and a friend of mine had reposted that these chairs were for sale by somebody called Stately Nola. So when the light turned green, I pulled over to the side of the road and I looked up Stately Nola, and there were these chairs. She helps people who want to sell things that they have that they just want to sell. She connects people so that they can sell their things. And so I saw on Stately Nola these 3 chairs, and I said, today, that's what I need. Those chairs need to come into my life today. And so I direct messaged the Stately Nola girl, and I was so hell-bent to have the chairs that I did not want any more messaging to go on. So I put my phone number in the message. And right after that, she called me and she said, Miss Neill, this is so-and-so, tell me her name. And she says, I know you because I went to school with your daughter, Isabel. So here is the first layer of New Orleans connection. And I said, look, I have to have those chairs. So whatever it takes, do I need to give you a credit card, whatever? I don't remember how I paid, but I said, those are the chairs for me. And she said, those are the chairs for you. And you're going to love the lady who's selling them. She lived in London and she's a wonderful person and she has beautiful things. And I don't know why she wants to sell these chairs, but you're going to be really happy to get them. But she made it a big point of telling me how much I was going to love this person. So I don't remember who got the phone number of who and who called, but it turns out that the person who was selling the chairs I've known for over 20 years. And she's actually the aunt of the first girl who was my assistant when I started this business. So it was a wonderful story. But then they were upholstered in chartreuse velvet with fringe around the bottom, which is kind of what thrilled me about them when I saw them. Although, so I was trying to find some fringe to replicate and I couldn't find any fringe that I loved. And so I wound up finding some trim from Schumacher that's a pre-pleated little trim. And we use that on the bottom, around the bottom of the chairs instead of piping. And so it kind of looks like the chairs are slip covered, which they're not. It's just upholstered with that ruffle. And then to make the point even more, I tied the little ribbons around the legs to make it look more like a slip cover. And I just think those chairs have been fun for me from the moment I fell in love with them on Instagram.
I mean, they're just adorable. And then I'd love the fact that the little pleated ruffle on the chairs echoes a little of the pleated ruffle at the base of the sofa.
Yes, and that's
sort of the box pleat on the sofa.
It all worked out.
It all worked out. Okay, we can't go. Wait, Danielle, we got to look at that light fixture. Got to look at that chandelier. Tell us about this one.
Okay, this one is named Constantino because it's an homage to Constantine Brancusi. I love his abstract shapes, although I didn't copy his, but it's definitely inspired by the work of Brancusi. And I love it because there's a plaster medallion and everything in the room is very traditional. And this chandelier just sort of gives some light and modernity to an otherwise very traditional room.
There are no light bulbs in this.
Believe it or not, there are LED lights inside the cups.
Wow, how cool. So then it just reflects up?
Yes, it's an uplight and it glows. It glows.
Wow. I bet that's beautiful at night.
It's beautiful at night.
You know, a lot of people say they don't want to use overhead light, but I guess in that case, it sort of creates a different kind of overhead light.
You don't feel it at all. Like sometimes you don't know where the light's coming from, but it's really cool.
It's a beautiful space. Let's spin around to the front of the space, the front room. Danielle is so good at this. Like, thank you for driving this thing, Danielle, because she's so good at keeping it going. This day bed, you designed this day bed when you were still doing furniture, right?
It was like the second piece of furniture I ever designed. And that is actually the second piece. And there's my kitty cat.
What's the cat's name?
Baby.
Oh.
And she's 17 years old and she's still a baby. So I designed this bed and I drew it all up and I was trying to tell the person who made it for me that it's a day bed and he couldn't understand the concept of day bed. He just heard bed. And so I kept saying that both faces, this face and this face need to match and that face and that, but he could only address it as a bed from front to back. So he made it wrong. He made the first one wrong to where the two sides like this look at each other and the two sides like that. So it's not perfect. And that's another thing I love about it. But after we designed this, then, you know, I made several custom for people that were correct, but I always didn't want to sell this one because it was not right. But you can't really tell it unless I point it out. But I just love that it's weird and part of my history as a designer.
I mean, you can't tell it at all. what are the floors in here? Are those rugs on it that make it look like
No, it's just a high gloss white paint.
over the wood?
Yes.
And so it's a high gloss so that you don't even see the wood boards.
No, I mean, in a couple of places you can see it, but on this picture, on this video thing, you can't see it. But it's just a high gloss, and I love it because doesn't it look like the furniture is just sort of floating?
Mm-hmm.
It just look how light it just keeps everything very light.
It keeps your eye up,
Yes.
where you just don't even look down.
No.
You can use that on wood. I mean, can you use it on other surfaces? Is it just
Oh
a?
yeah, it's just an oil-based paint
Mm,
that's high gloss.
oh. And it holds up well to
It
foot
does.
traffic.
It does.
That's great. Is there anything else in this room we need to? Waiting. We're going to spin around, see if there's anything else that we need to get you to tell us more about. It's a great view of this space. And I love how you put the drapes around the door. So then it created a look as if you could close it off if you wanted to.
Yes, you can if you want it to just feel like not the front room of a house and more like a private space, you can close all the curtains and it's like a cocoon.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Let's look at this light fixture as well, the chandelier.
You know,
this is one of your designs.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually a prototype, so it's not electrified.
Oh.
And there's no electricity in the ceiling right there anyhow, so it just hangs there. It doesn't do anything but hang it in the ceiling. I can put candles in it and light them, but I don't really feel too confident of that.
You don't want to burn your house down. It's just jewelry. Someone once told me that the light fixtures in a house are the jewelry of the house. And I was like, oh, I love that illusion. And I just think it's the jewelry,
It's the jewelry for sure.
Tell us about this painting on the left.
On the left, that is a painting by Adam Farrington, who's a New Orleans artist. And he used to make he's mainly a sculptor, and he used to make chandeliers for me. And when I was at his studio, I doesn't like that painting for some reason, but I never got to it. That it just makes me feel good, and I love the colors, and it just feels like home.
I mean, the colors are the pop in that room. I mean, they really add some energy above the fireplace.
Yes.
Such a soothing, fun space. I can totally see why you call this your thinking room.
That's my
You just want to go there and daydream.
Yes.
So from these two rooms, how do they flow back into the rest of do you go back through the dining room?
Yes, that's our portal to the other side.
So this is like its own contained space.
Yeah. And what happened is, when this was a double, if you look right there at the 9 pieces of art, the 9 engravings, if you look to the left, there was a door where that lamp is.
Oh.
And because it was a shotgun, this side was a shotgun too. So you went through a door right there that had led into the kitchen.
Oh.
So when I renovated the kitchen, I needed the wall space to put cabinets on and countertop. So I closed up the door here, which is wonderful. I honestly didn't realize that was going to create, this is the only place in the house that isn't a flow space.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that happened, but it wasn't planned.
Well, serendipitous. You may not have thought you planned it, but you were smart enough to figure that out, even when you didn't even know you were figuring it out. But it does. It contains this. It's almost like its own little apartment And I don't mean that in the way of like somebody could live in that space, more
No,
just
it's
like
just,
it's little, you know,
it's my compartment.
compartment. So then
Yes.
we go back down and we'll go back into the kitchen. I do see how all the doors are pairs.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you put those fixtures in the middle, the knobs in the middle, or were those part of the doors?
Okay, the knobs were always in the middle, and they were that brown clay knob that's sort of marbleized that I loved, and I had it up until last year. I had those. And it just they needed to not be so dark. And so I changed out and got brass ones from Realty. But when I did, I had this box full of these beautiful old knobs. And I just want to say this on the PRC tour. I brought them over to Realty, to Michelle, who I love over there. And I said, here's a gift. Please take good care of these if you want to, if somebody needs them. And she said, no, we have to keep them because they're so fabulous. And so now
Oh,
has a little Julie Neill memorial corner with my doorknobs.
oh, that's so wonderful.
Oh
That is
yeah,
so
I love,
wonderful.
they're so helpful at Realty,
They are.
and they're so respectful of old houses.
Mhm.
And she helped me to find something that worked well, but did not compromise.
No, absolutely. And we are the PRC, so we really highly encourage architectural salvage when something does need to be removed from a house or a building if it doesn't work in its current life. We just hope that people save them and let them be used in somewhere else where they do work. So we very much appreciate that.
Well,
Um,
we haven't looked in these two rooms that we just were in at all these little pieces, parts of old buildings, but I collect parts of old buildings.
oh,
So
we should spin around and
you can see different little things that I've
you
collected.
connect little architectural pieces that you
Yes.
find.
Like if you see
Oh,
that
I
thing,
see it right there in front of the fireplace.
yeah, that is something that I don't even know what it was. And then, yeah, I have a lot. You'll see. I think there's some more that you'll wind up seeing
Yeah.
throughout.
Because they really, these houses need to evolve with our lives. We
But you
acknowledge
still
that.
need to save the parts.
If you save the parts, and if you can't use them, someone else can. I mean, I was doing a renovation in my own house, and I have those typical glass doorknob things that were probably from the 20s. They came with the house, but like one was missing, and I'm like, where do you find that? H-Raw. And they found one that almost is exactly like the others, and I was like, okay, good, because otherwise it looks really weird.
Right.
They were like, one has a modern knob, but I was very appreciative that they had it. Oh yeah, it's so pretty, so pretty. Do you cook?
Yes, I love to cook. I don't cook every night because I my children are grown. My daughter lives upstairs, and we created the camelback, made it into an apartment. Um, but she and her boyfriend will eat when I cook. I don't cook every night anymore because I just don't have that lifestyle. But for birthday parties and all the holidays, everyone knows that you come to my house because I don't even let anybody bring a dish. I cook everything, and I love every minute of it.
You grew up in New Orleans.
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up uptown and then in Old Metairie when I was a teenager, but I grew up with an Italian grandmother and cooking, cooking for large groups of people is the way I was raised. I have a friend who says he never knew anybody who enjoyed watching other people eat more than they enjoy eating. But I do. I love to cook for people.
Well, speaking of family treasures, these pieces on your wall here that are right in front of us, the collars, I am intrigued by them, but they were your mother's, right?
They were my mother's. In the 1950s, the girls wore a little twin set, like a little sweater and then a little cardigan that had a round neck. And the way that they dressed them up was to put a pearl collar. And I always had those, and I had them a lot of times like on a coffee table or a table. And all of a sudden I realized, people are touching these and they were getting a little too much touching. So, and also, my house is my house. And it's a girly house. And I like a kitchen that's kind of frilly. And I thought that they look like art. They're frilly, but I framed them in a way to make them look more like artifacts than something ridiculous. So everyone who goes in the kitchen just falls in love with those.
I just love them. And I also love that they have a family story. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and they're in your kitchen, which is such a personal space, in people's homes. Yeah. So I just, it's a family space. And so to have that kind of connection is just charming.
I love it.
So you renovated this space when you bought the house, you said.
Right. Yeah. This room was a kitchen and a powder room. And if you see where the countertop runs along the outside wall, that was a hallway to another little hall. Make room for the counter to go all the way. And we got rid of the powder on the other side of the house. And I'm just noticing I still have some of those clay knobs right there. I missed those too. So we got rid of the powder room, but just to make more room for the kitchen.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you. And funny thing is the kitchen on the other side was so small that I just felt like I didn't want to get rid of it. It was kind of weird. Everyone laughs at me. The kitchen on the other, which was my only kitchen before I did this, was so small and so crowded that I built this kitchen. I kept the old kitchen, and somebody wanted to cook with me, I could send them over to the other side. But it turns out this kitchen is so large that you don't need to do that. So, but behind those curtains is a little butler's pantry that is just what used to be the old kitchen.
Oh, and I love the way you cordoned it off with just the curtains, because it softens it. I just love it. See it? Oh, yeah, it's adorable. And it's, if you are having a big dinner party, it's nice to have another.
It's so wonderful.
Space where you can have a warming oven and still have stuff in the other oven. So if you really do love to entertain, it's kind of a luxury to have this.
It's great on holidays to have two stoves going at the same time. It's nothing better.
This backsplash is marble. What is this? It looks really beautiful.
It's water jet cut marble.
Whoa.
And I'm not a pattern person, but I happened to see that marble. It's so, it's still neutral, it's subtle, but it just thrilled me. So, and I just put it there. I just liked it, so I put it there.
And then let's see, we'll spin back around. I love the drapes. It's like just sort of the way to sort of cordon this off. You can close it or not, but it just makes it feel, and it's just softer. Like everything is softer.
I like that it's soft.
Right. Yes. So this was the kitchen you cooked in for most of your, but before you renovated that.
Yeah, I mean, not more of the time. I've had the other kitchen for more of the time, but when I first moved in and the other side was still rented, that was my kitchen. It was really tight.
It's really tiny.
Yes. But it's nice. It's so tiny that you wouldn't I just didn't think I needed, and to get rid of it, what else would I do with it? There's nothing else. So it's nice to have the option.
And more cabinet space.
And I think you can see I have orchids on the stove because I don't usually cook in that stove. And because I'm renovating right now, I have a lot of plants in that space. You know, it's got great light and orchids love it. And I'm an orchid person. So I think you're not seeing, but I think there's a few orchids in the sink actually, but maybe not. Maybe
I think
no, I
can,
must have moved them for the picture, but usually there's a bunch of orchids in the sink.
that's wonderful. I'm worried about time. We could talk forever, but I don't want to miss. So I think we just have a few more spaces, just the back here.
Yeah, so you'll see that curtain is really where we stopped because the renovation's going on behind there. So we didn't really take many more pictures, but this is my little cute powder room that I love.
So it's the only space where the walls are a different color than white.
Yes. Well, you know, you're supposed to have fun in your powder room. So
Right.
I made it a fun space.
And it's like a chocolate brown, which is really pretty.
It's a chocolate brown. And then I had where the tub is like, we made it look like a circus tent to, you know, let's see, Danielle can make that happen. Yeah. Like I made the curtains
Oh,
are like
yeah.
a circus tent.
Oh, how cute is that?
And that's just our little fun moment in the powder room.
Mm-hmm. Did you design the sconces that are by the sink?
Yes.
They're beautiful. Spin back around.
They're simple. I didn't want anything too over the top. There's not a lot of room on the sides of that mirror, but they're Laura sconces and you can get them from Julie Neill Designs.
They're beautiful. Well, I know we're getting close on time, so there are some questions. So I'm gonna ask you a few. The first is, what shade of white did you use throughout on your walls?
Okay, this is gonna make some people laugh, but it's Benjamin Moore white. Like when you go to the paint store, you can go to the shelf and pick it up because it's not even a mixed color. It's basic Benjamin Moore white. And I've tried a lot of fancy named other colors, but none of them look good to me. So it's just your basic Benjamin Moore white.
I mean, that's super helpful because finding the right white, there's 1,000 whites. And so finding the right one can be really hard. So if you're looking for a white, here's a beautiful one.
Well, can I tell you what? This white, I guess that's why it's the basic one, because it's never let me down ever. You know, you can get one that's too pink, too blue, too gray, too yellow. Mm-hmm. This one, I think, is just it's not too anything. It's just perfect.
Someone then also asked about the finish on your wood floors here. Is it a matte finish? Is it a polyurethane?
I think it's called satin, and Floor Crafters did the floors for me, and I think they do beautiful work.
Yeah.
But they sanded them, and then I think they had to bleach them twice or 3 times. And then they also, after they bleach it, they put a white pickling on it, and then they sealed it twice. Mm-hmm. They're great. I love them.
Someone was asking about your use of the jute rugs, or are they jute or sisal?
They're seagrass.
They're seagrass. And you use those pretty much throughout. You don't use any other type of rugs.
Yes, and I'm not a rug person at all, but I'll tell you, it's crazy, but I have 3 cats and they all want to scratch the furniture. And if I put seagrass rugs down, they scratch the rugs and pretty much don't scratch the furniture. They still want to scratch the furniture, but they have so much rug to claw. And I don't get custom made ones because if they get ruined, they get thrown away and I just get another one.
Yeah, and that is one of the advantages of seagrass and jute and those natural fiber rugs is they're relatively inexpensive compared to. So if one of them, I have 2 small pugs, and when they were puppies, one of them had accidents on one of my seagrass rugs, and I was just like, that's just
see you later.
And I was like, luckily this rug cost me $200 and not $1,000 or something, you know. Right. So you don't cry. You know, we love our pets, but they definitely have their things. And then let's see, another question. Somebody was asking about the mixing of styles as far as lighting goes, contemporary with modern, with traditional. Do you have sort of a philosophy on mixing? You know, clearly in your house, you've got very contemporary light fixtures, and then you also have some very traditional ones.
Well, people ask me that all the time, like how, like you don't have one style of lighting that you do. And I'd say there's two answers to that question, which is number one, um, I'm a fine artist before I'm a lighting designer, and I think of lighting sort of like sculpture. And if something occurs to me, I'm going to play with it and see what happens. And the second thing is, most of my lighting designer career has been to do custom lighting. And so I sort of think of lighting for the space it's going in and for the person whose space it is. So it leads you to come up with ideas that you may not have come up with. It's very inspirational to work in a custom way because you get to think up things that you might not think up. But to me, it's all just making fabulous sculptures that hang from the ceiling that happen to light up. So I don't have one particular style. I mean, people say they can see my work, my handiwork inside of my designs because they all sort of have a feminine thing. They're lightweight. They're not thick or heavy. They're graceful. So I do have a signature, but I think it runs across different styles.
I would absolutely say, as somebody who's just enjoyed seeing your light fixtures all these years, you definitely have a feel, although the range of what you do is quite big. I mean, it's, I wouldn't peg you as someone who's all modern, all contemporary, or all real traditional. There's something in every sort of stylistic category, but they all feel like a Julie Neill sculpture. I don't know how to describe that any other way, but they very much.
Thank you for that, because the next time I get asked this question, that's a good answer.
There you go. They just really have your touch. They all have kind of a feel to them that's very much you, but then they speak to wherever they are. I mean, they are all very, like in your own home, we can see how very different they are in each room, which I think is super charming. I will say, in the 3D tour, we don't have pictures of it, but in our magazine, Preservation and Print, we have pictures of these 1950s chandeliers. I think we took
in my bedroom.
In the bed. Well, they weren't taking pictures. They're mentioned in the story. Tell us about those.
So I was driving down the street and I saw out for the garbage these two gigantic lampshades from the 1950s. You know, they're kind of narrow but tall. And they had some horrible old fabric on them, even like a big thick velvet bottom, that 50s look. And I don't know why, but the shape called to me. My daughter was a teenager at the time, completely horrified by the fact that I was picking something up out of the garbage, but I could not help myself. And I brought them home and I pulled all the fabric off. And of course, I bleached them and sprayed, hosed them down and everything. And they just were looking at me and I didn't know what to do about it. And all of a sudden I just decided to glue a bunch of feathers onto them. And I think they've been in my bedroom for like 10 years. But everyone who photographs my house just goes crazy over the feathers. They're very feminine and they're just very cool. And I love them. That's I wish we had a picture. I wish I had a picture.
I know. I don't think we have a picture on the tour, because I will say to everyone who's watching, Julie was gracious enough to open her house while she's in the middle of a renovation, which is quite a thing. So that's why we're limited in what we're seeing here. But someone did ask, tell us a little bit about what you were working on that we don't see.
Well, behind that curtain at the end of the hallway is a big family room, and that's existing. it was 2 bedrooms. When I bought this house, it was a 6-bedroom house, and now it's like a 2-bedroom house because we've, renovated, we've cut, I'm not a wall knocker downer, but when you have 2 little icky bedrooms at the back of the house, the only thing you can do is knock a wall down and make it into a family room. So that was existing. And on the other side of the double is my master bedroom. But behind those 2 rooms was just what happens on a lot of New Orleans shotguns, is a lean-to shack roof where probably the first bathrooms were put in, because my house didn't have bathrooms when it was first built. So that's where my master bath was on one side, and on the other side was kind of, it at one time had been a closet and a laundry room, just a jumble of funny stuff. Well, and it only had 9-foot ceilings because it was kind of a shed roof and it wasn't in good condition. So I knocked it down. And on one side, behind my master bedroom, is a gorgeous master bath. I wish you could see it. It's almost finished. It exceeds all my expectations. But we pulled the house out 8 more feet and I got a master closet behind there. And on the other side, behind the family room, I've got this new beautiful room that it has doors down both sides, pairs of doors that match what exists in the house that I got from the bank. And it has a lot of closet storage on one side and a laundry room and wet bar behind pairs of doors on the other side, which leads out to an 8-foot porch.
Oh,
and
you have a big backyard.
I don't. I have left all that code will allow, and I think it's 16 feet. But Susan, you have to come see it.
I know, I'm dying to see it. When it's done, I'm going to totally come over.
Totally come over, because all my dreams came true with this renovation.
That's spectacular. Somebody did ask where your laundry is located, and I thought you were telling me before this that you have like a fancy laundry room that you were building.
Well, when it's kind of a fancy laundry room, but when you're walking out to the porch, there's a room that just is, it looks like a hallway, because on one side there's 2 pairs of doors that are closets, and on the other side are 2 pairs of doors, and behind one of the pairs is the washer and dryer, and the other pair was going to be just, like a laundry room sink. But I wound up putting beautiful marble and a brass faucet, because now we're going to be entertaining in the yard. So it's kind of like a laundry sink / wet bar, a fancy laundry sink and wet bar. So
that's terrific. It's
fantastic.
All right, one more question, and I know we've taken you past 6 o'clock, but somebody did ask about the white and gold sculpture in the front room by the daybed. I think we're heading in that direction, so let's see if we can see it. The Neil mic, take us to there. Let's see.
White and gold sculpture.
The daybed. I don't know. What is he talking? What is Rebecca? If you're still watching, I don't know what the white and gold sculpture in the front room by the daybed. I don't see a white and gold sculpture. Maybe this column.
Well, that column is just a piece of architecture, like I told you, that I collect. I got that from Antiques on Jackson. Maybe she's talking about this weird thing that I did on the coffee table.
She's talking about next to the fireplace, she said.
Okay, I know what she's talking about. If you see, there's like a white, it's like a white urn shape, and then these golden leaves, and they're on a wooden base. So that white urn shape was just a prototype for something I was working on in plaster. And then the leaves were another prototype. That's got a long history, but the leaves were made by somebody for me a long, long time ago. The first person I ever worked with to create my lighting. And so that I put them together. It's just, it was just 2 things that I had lying around that looked like they needed to be together. So I just put them together. Isn't it kind of fun?
It's really fun. It almost, to me, looks like, in Greek and Roman history, you always had leaves around people's hair and leaves on things. And it feels sort of that to me.
Well, thank you for getting that, because that is exactly where my thoughts were. It was like a Greek amphora and then some laurel leaves kind of hanging over it. But it was just weird. Like, I have this and I have that, and wow, let's put them together and see what happens.
Great. Well, I do have a few people who didn't have questions, but just wanted to say, one, Beth says, I absolutely love what you've done with this house. Not a question, just a comment. Other people have commented saying how beautiful it is and how much they just are thrilled that we were able to peek inside. And I will echo that. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. It's a wonderful way to just sort of have a look. I have to say, it started raining during this, and I'm sitting right by my front windows, and I was a little worried that the Wi-Fi was going to go out. And I was like, it's actually very soothing. Your house is so soothing, and I have the rain, and I'm like, wow, what a lovely way to finish a Sunday afternoon.
Thank you for saying that. That really is part of what I'm inspired to do, is make my home be my cocoon.
You've done it. You've done it. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in, not just today, but throughout our whole month of programs. I hope you've enjoyed them as much as we have. All of these programs are going to be on PRC's YouTube channel. So if you missed them, or if you want to go back and re-experience one, you can tune in and stay tuned for more programs in the later. We're going to take a little break probably in July, and we'll have more stuff coming from the PRC in the fall. So thank you, Julie.
I just wanted to say thank you, PRC, for being there, because we need you in New Orleans.
Well, we really appreciate it. You know, protecting these houses, protecting our historic architecture, it's what makes New Orleans, right?
Yes.
And so every one of these houses has a story. We're just so thrilled to be able to peek behind the curtains. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.